So actually, when you think of all these factors, it's amazing that we do manage to teach our students so effectively, or that they manage to learn so effectively. So the role of the teacher in all of this is key. Coming from a traditional role where the teacher's at the centre and in control of the classroom, if learner independence is to develop or to evolve, it's essential that the teacher allows the space for that, and allows for the fact that it's going to be messy. If you're allowing students independence, it means that you're giving over control of the classroom situation to them. And that's not something that they're necessarily comfortable with. So it may mean, in the beginning at least, that it's a very messy situation. It's very important that it's managed in a way that you know the learners are ready for that. Someone asked me, well, when do learners start to be independent? From the very beginning, you start small, and you give the learners as much scaffolding as they need. You give them, maybe in a controlled situation, but you give them a few choices, so they're already asserting their independence in terms of the choice that they make. And then you realise when you're aware enough where they are on the continuum, that you can let them run with something and take total responsibility for a certain stage. And it's all about creating and integrating opportunities. Learner independence isn't something that you can decide to focus on once a week. Okay, we look at learner trainer strategies here and we'll apply them in this particular class or this activity. They have to be integrated fully into every aspect of what you're doing in order to make it very real for the learners. I'm going to look next at a model for how we actually go about things, to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So, students are at the centre, of course, and first stage is maybe awareness raising, and it can be looking at metacognitive strategies, getting learners to think about how they're actually learning. Many of them won't have done this before. So you might do an activity in terms of maybe learning vocabulary or planning an essay. And you might decide, okay, let's do some brainstorming. Let's make linear notes in relation to brainstorming. Or then you might say, well, let's try a mind map. And how does this change? You'll ask the learners to think about what they were actually doing in one situation and what they're doing in the mind map situation. Are they doing anything different? Which one is more effective? So just in very small ways, you're getting them to think about the whole process of learning what they're doing. So the role of the teacher then becomes more like the guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage. You've got also these three areas here. Students love to know what level they're at a particular moment in time. And I think it's quite useful if we can hand them self-assessment tools on a regular basis and get them to have input into all of this. And I think you'll find that a lot of students will have quite a realistic view. Some of them are way off the scale, and there's not a lot we can do about that. But to encourage people to think about, well, what can I do well at the moment in these situations on a scale of 1 to 5? And then to revisit the same thing again, and in 10 weeks' time, or we have 10-week terms, and see if they've shifted somewhere else along that particular scale. Within the class, there are activities that you do with the whole group, but I think it's quite important to engender in learners an awareness to help them find the particular areas they need to focus on and to set specific goals. One of the things that we do in classes is then get them to report back on what they've done. They keep a record of work and they let the rest of the students in the group know what particular aspect of their listening they've been focusing on, for example, listening to news or developing more discrete skills. And this helps create a whole atmosphere and environment of taking time to work on something individually. But again, it needs to be integrated into the classroom, and there needs to be some acknowledgement on the part of the teacher that this is happening, and encouragement, because everybody needs encouragement, and especially if you're working on something on your own. So, if size of classes in Reading are generally about 14 students in a group, and what's your average size of class here? Is it about the same? Okay. So we can actually give individual tutorials to students, and this is invaluable in the sense that they feel that this is a time that's devoted to them as an individual, and they can bring a lot of the issues that they might have in class to the tutor at that particular time, and the issues that they have about learning. And you can help them fine-tune their approach in in a way that you won't be able to do with the group as a whole, if you have the luxury of having that time. When we first developed this model of Reading, it didn't include the last part of it there, which is collaboration with other students. And I think if we can get students working together in groups independently on projects, that's ultimately what we're striving towards in terms of fostering learner independence. Because then you as a practitioner have a role that's very much on the side. Students within their own groups will establish their particular roles. One will emerge as a leader, another one might be the IT expert, someone else will be a good organiser, and you might have ones that don't participate terribly well at all, but that's part of what human society is like anyway. So this is what we're aiming for. Will the virtual environment make much difference? Is it making much difference? Is it having a great impact in terms of what we do in terms of learner independence? I think it's still very early days. We're at a stage where we haven't fully developed a new pedagogy for the virtual environment. Do we even need to? Can we apply the principles that we've had in teaching and learning? Can we continue to apply them? Since we've changed so much since the 70s, 60s and 70s in our approach to language teaching, maybe this next change will come about with what's happening virtually. Relatively, the internet has only been around for 20 years, and that's an incredibly short time, considering the impact it has had on every aspect of society, including education. Certainly, we can say that learning styles of our students are accommodated by the virtual learning environment. I'm sure you've all come across students who are quite timid in class in terms of expressing their ideas and opinions, and they may be in the same group as other students who are very verbal and can express their opinions with no problem. You have things like virtual learning environments like Blackboard and Moodle, whereby you can set up a discussion group and students can then take their time and present their point of view or their opinion on a particular topic. And certainly we find in Reading that this, particularly with Asian students, that this can be an area where they come to the fore in terms of developing their opinions. We hear a lot about the Google generation, and a lot of our students, the first thing that they'll do is Google something for information if they want to find out about something. And we also hear a lot about these students being digital natives, but our experience at Reading is that's not generalizable. So I think we have to be very careful in terms of assuming which students are comfortable in this environment and which students are not. And of course, which teachers are comfortable in this environment, because we haven't all grown up in this sort of a way. So a lot of the students now in the educational system in the UK are on the cusp of something that's changing. The current students will finish with relatively traditional approach to teaching, but with some dipping in and out of VLE environments. But the next generation will have much greater expectations of what can be done virtually. Particularly with the current and ongoing development of Web 2 materials, so that you have interaction, tools that are allowing for interaction, like Second Life. Are you familiar with Second Life? Yeah. In a way that tools weren't available before. So these are some of the things that I consider as the first wave, the kinds of activities that we will be, the kinds of activities we will be doing at Reading. For example, you have, I mentioned the virtual learning environment, so you have things like Blackboard and Moodle, where you can set up groups, they can collaborate together, they can have discussions, they can give feedback on essays, drafts, that sort of thing to each other, and it can be an ongoing process of which there's a record. I think it's quite useful to have this record for students. They can do self-diagnostic tests online that they can go to and come back to at different stages. There's lots of interactive websites for writing, for academic writing, and our students find these particularly useful if they want to reiterate something that's been done in class. And there'll be a list of some useful websites that we found on the website afterwards. Online dictionaries. Students can have a dictionary open when they're actually working on a particular assignment, and they can find the context of the word, an example for how it's used, get the pronunciation of that word. So that's empowering them to be more independent when they're actually working on whatever they're doing.